Hello, this is T. Lee Logic Jones back to do just a little follow-up to the last video I did on basically throwing rocks from the train on the Einsteinian Express. And there were a few things that were less clear, perhaps, than I would like them to have been. But I think if it was for a one-off monologue, it actually went pretty good. I recorded it in a park in the evening one day. It just felt I was needing to get this description out of me. And so I'd like to come back to it here and look at a couple details just to explain more fully what it is that I was doing. So if you remember from the first video, we have a train moving along a track, and in the train there is a person who is the train is moving this way, and the person drops the rock from the train. Now, from within the train, and as it's traveling along, the rock will appear, whether or not the train is sitting still or moving, the rock will appear to fall in a straight line down in front of the train, like this. But as the location of the train is changing time by time as it's moving, the locations of the rock will be in these positions here, actually, relative to a viewer on the embankment, which is effectively what we are here watching this. So we can see from the two lines here, the view of dropping the stone from the car, whether it's moving or sitting still, will be in context of the car, as a straight line traveling in front of the car. But the train car is moving this way, meaning that in truth, its locations will be, these locations will actually over time be presented in this arc, as we can see by the movement here. We see if we move the train car along, how that line actually is manifest in an arc because of the movement of the stone. The stone is moving in relationship to the train car. But if we were to go back to the beginning, before the movement, and we were to simply throw the stone from this point with the same amount of lateral intention as the train car is going to, because that's effectively all that's happening. When the train's traveling along, the moment that the stone is released, it is being the velocity or the change rate of the car in which the person is sitting, including their hand, releases it as if it were tossed. And if it were simply tossed from a still train car, this is exactly the path that the stone would follow. So we have to understand that this lateral movement here is an accident of the train. It's not a necessary force, and it's not a force that is continuous. And so the train car could stop. It could, disappear, as could the person, after it was released, and it would have no effect on this motion that takes place. This motion of the stone is in tandem with the motion of the car only by an accident of the person in the car being the one to throw it, and by simply releasing without any extra effort on his part, he ends up throwing the stone in this way. And so if he's looking down, yeah, sure, it follows a straight line in relationship to the train. But there's other things going on, as we noted before. As it's traveling, the ground is changing below, and also the object is speeding up. So to say that from the perspective of the person in the train travels a straight line is to only tell a very limited part of what you can even determine from this position. I mean, if you had the capacity of measuring it, you could see that it was speeding up. You can also see that it's changing in relationship with the ground, that as you're looking along, you see the ground moving and the stone moving faster as it approaches to hit the ground. So it's taking the perspective of a person, even if they're the cause of the dropping object. As soon as they release it, they have no connection to the dropping object. It is just merely a body being directed by Earth intention towards the center of Earth. It is not in any way connected to this person anymore. It's a purely accidental relationship. This relationship is constant and consistent. Even when it does finally land, it's still under the influence of this force. And so we have to see this force and the other forces, this force and this controlling state that we are on Earth is as a kind of context, and that motions are actually not only relative to location, but that there is actually a causal hierarchy, and that this is the principal defining motion of all objects of Earth. Therefore, it is the defining context for all objects of Earth, the center of Earth, that place, the point to which all objects of Earth are ostensibly directed. So, and then to say out here, viewing the train, the car moving from out here, that this is, to see, out here looking at the train car moving again, to say that this is only a view from the embankment and not an actual movement in space and time relative to, of course, the center of Earth, which is the definition of the space. But it is not merely an arbitrary difference. And this line is, in fact, only straight relative to this perspective. But as we can see, they're both the same line. Like, it's not two distinct ways of looking at the same thing. It's two perspectives seeing the same thing. Now, is one more true than the other? Well, of course, this is the true movement. This arc is the true movement. This is also true, but it is subordinate to this, because this doesn't tell us, when we're looking at it this way, that these are actually in motion in this way that we've seen. This straight line doesn't tell us that moment by moment it's further along, and it's further along relative to the ground of the being. So we have, even if we want to say that the center of the Earth is an accident and not a necessary condition, and I suppose even from a theistic point of view, we have to say that, God, as we understand, God did not need to create the world. But he did, and once he did form these contexts, such as we see here, the context of this is Earth and its controlling formal influence, which is this affect of Earth intention. So it isn't pure subjectivity or relativity due to perception, as if, the person viewing from here is identically equal to the person sitting on top of the train car, who is identically equal in everything in understanding the motion from any perspective. It's really kind of a, as I said in the thing, it's a kind of a blunder to not see this in that way, to say that these things are two distinct things, whereas they are in fact two ways in which a single event, which is this event here taking place, and we could look at it from all angles, from all perspectives, or sorry, from the three coordinates. We could see that it's also running parallel a distance from the car, and that it's all, and that it possesses these both vertical and horizontal coordinates as well. But it's moving actually through this space, and you can refer that to the person riding here, the person sitting up here, the person in the grass here, the person over here. There will be a relative change in distance from any actual or any location, which allows you for a possible observer, will be describing the motion in terms of this arc. And if this person here saw this and they observed it, and they noted both the rate of change of the ground and the rate of change of increase in terms of velocity in fall, they would be able, this person could, by rational means, infer this line right here, because this is the motion that's being observed from different perspectives. And it is only because this motion is in absolute space-time, making this motion, that we can have relative perspectives. The relative perspectives do not define the motion. They are always subordinate to the motions of the objects. Now, there's, of course, some fancy talk about that with at the quantum level. I'm not going to get into that right here, but it's irrelevant to this discussion because nothing is changing because we're observing it here. It's just either somebody is here to see it, or there's somebody here not to see it. You know, does a stone falling from a train still scribe a parabolic arc, even if there's no one there to watch it? Yeah, you betcha. It does. That's always the case. This is the motion. This is the motion. And they're one and the same things. They're not two different relative understandings. They are two different relative vantage points which together work to tell a single story. And this is the fundamental error, which then led me, as I said, to write the book Relativity Revisited. But also what another book that I have recently published is called You Can't Fly a Plane on a Spinning Ball, in which I deal with this issue of contextuality in terms of our Earth in great detail by documenting the flight of an airplane from the equator up to, in this book, Sort of Truth is the subtitle of it, where I document the path of an airplane traveling through. You Can't Fly a Plane on a Spinning Ball, William Scott Henthorne, and in this book, we deal with the issue of a jet flying from the equator. Here's the path. Now, its path is a line that travels along a longitude up to. So we see along this path, it travels the plane on the sphere itself of the Earth. It travels from the equator to the 60th latitude along a single longitudinal line. But in the course of, kind of much like our plane in a way, I mean our train in a way, but in the course of the trip, the Earth is rotating this way. And so the plane is actually traveling further this way, or to the right hand side. And in fact, over the course of the flight, as we see here, the plane travels a greater distance laterally this way than it does actually forward. It's the equivalent of its travel laterally would be, according to this vertical path, would actually only be to about here. This is the distance around the arc that it travels this way, whereas laterally it's traveling much, much further. So that's because the Earth presents as a context. I won't do too much more about that right here, but that is the conclusions drawn in the book. I invite you to purchase the book if you would like to read it. If you want not to purchase the book, I invite you to. You can ask me to send you a copy. I'd be happy to send a PDF to certain people because I'm interested in getting these things out and discussed because I think they are very important because they bear on they bear on faith, on the faith, and what is the nature of the world that we live in. We've lived in a certain kind of world now that was, in the one case, Newtonian, and now we live in this Einsteinian world, in many ways, this relativistic world, for which there is, from this and more and further in my other book, Relativity Revisited, no basis. As we've seen here, there's no basis to say that somehow relative point of view is a means of defining nature, defining these as two separate events almost, as it were, based on perspective, whereas vantage is simply subordinate to the objects of sense. Because if there's an object of sense that's doing something, in this case, the train moving along the track, with the stone being dropped, again, if nobody was there to see it, it would still do it. Even if the person keeled over or dropped it and left and went to the dining car or got distracted, it would still continue to do its thing. That it's observed is a secondary thing. And because space and time are absolute, and movement and motion are absolutely fixed according to rules within that space and time, even and consistently spread, only under that condition can we have a world which is observable from any vantage, from here, from here, from here, from here. These are all relative points of view. I want it to be clear that I do not in any way deny the notions of relativity, especially those such as put forward by Galileo. I'm denying Einsteinian. I'm merely bringing into question Einsteinian relativity in terms of what he continues to build upon from this rather simple blunder. And this blunder is being repeated constantly by people who don't take the time to see that these movements are actually grounded in the real, in a consistent, absolute spacetime. So that's all the clarification I wanted to make regarding the first video. The way the first video went, I made these animations. It's just a CAD program, which I'm, moving things along by doing undo and redo. It's hardly that technical, but I thought it was just important to clarify this. So Again, if you're interested, please leave a comment. I would love to hear some conversation about these things. Challenge me if you think that I'm in error. Keep it civil, mostly. Don't be too personal. Um, Although I have been described as a grifter. And my first accusation of grift by somebody who never read a word I wrote. But anyway, that's the kind of world that we live in. So I'm a geocentric grifter. Maybe I should use that as my new um, my new handle. Anyway, God bless. Let me know what you think. If anybody wants to interview me on these topics, I would be more than happy to go on any show to have a conversation. Um, God bless, and we'll see you soon. Teleologic Jones out.